Hi, Matt with etrailer. If you have a 2023 Mitsubishi Outlander and you're looking for something to carry a variety of different styles of bikes, then the RockyMounts Gigawatt Bike Rack is going to be a great option for you. So let's check it out. And one of those styles of bikes this will be able to work with are going to be those heavy e-bikes. Now this will be able to carry up to 2 bikes, and each one of them is going to be able to weigh up to 80 pounds. So that's some pretty heavy bikes. Now we actually have a pretty good tilt-away. A lot of times if you have those heavier e-bikes on here, it's going to reflect in that too, but this is pretty good. This is pretty low to the ground. It's only a couple inches away. So keep that in mind if you're in some areas that are uneven terrain, it might make contact. But this will also allow you to open up your hatch. And it gets a little bit close to our handlebars, but ours are a little bit wider, so it should work with most bikes. And this will allow me the opportunity to do a few things, whether I want to put away some groceries, or if I want to get ready for my ride, maybe grab my helmet, tie my shoes, or even grab my included ramp. Now keep in mind, I did put down my 3rd row of seating because this is a pretty long ramp. And to put it back up into the seated position, all you have to do is come down here and lift up on it. Now this might be a little bit heavy if you have both those 80-pound e-bikes on here, but with just a standard bike, it's not too bad. And if we want to take a closer look at this, we're going to have to remove our bike. So where I like to start is with this rear tire. The way we're going to do this is just come to the strap, and I like this because all the touch points are going to be blue. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to press, so I'll just come over here with both my hands, kind of wiggle that from the bottom, and it'll go right out. I also just like to pull this all the way down because this can slide up and down your tray to accommodate for different wheelbases. Tuck it like this, just make this process a little bit easier. And then before I actually take off my bike or take off the front side, I'm just going to grab our included ramp. Now the way this is going to work is we're going to have these hooks on the very end of it, and these are going to grab onto the tray right at this point right here. It's a really easy process, doesn't take very long at all. You're also probably wondering why I put it on this tray closest to me. The reason being is because we have this wall right next to us, and these can only go off in one direction, and that's going to get in my way. You might find yourself in a similar situation if you're in a really tight parking spot where there's another car next to you. So this is going to help you out a lot. Now before I make that transition, I'm also going to move this hook out of my way and then remove this bottom strap. I like this one because that's just giving us a little bit more hold to that front tire, since that can be one of the points that moves around the most. And then to remove the hook, I'm just going to press this blue button. Now push right out of place. Now what I like about this design is this is perfect for those carbon frame bikes or alternative frame bikes, since we're not making any frame contact. And we actually have a secondary location. We can actually put it right here if we wanted to. We just use this additional strap, and that's meant to work with bikes with fenders. But with that out of my way, I'm just going to pull this towards me until it sits on this tray, and then I can just push this off and then take it out for a ride. And with your bike off, you just need to make sure you put everything back up. And speaking of which, putting up this ramp can be kind of difficult sometimes because we don't have a whole lot of space back here. And now I actually put the 3rd row of seating up, and I can get it in here, but I also don't have anything else here either. So again, that's pretty tight. And if your back is full of cargo, then maybe a different option for you to go with would be the Yakima On-Ramp LX bike rack, because that ramp is just going to store right on top of your bike rack itself. Now the issue with that though is I'm not a big fan of that ramp because there's a lot more pieces that kind of go into putting it together, so it's going to be a lot more setup time. So this is just going to be the easier, more simple method to work with. But with everything put up, we can get a few measurements. And the first measurement I like to get is the ground clearance. So that's going to be the furthest point out to the closest point to the ground, which is going to be 19 inches, which is very good. Even if you do have those heavy e-bikes on here, this may be going to drop down by an inch or two, which you'll still have plenty of clearance of not making ground contact. Now for how close or how far away it is from your vehicle, we are going to be sitting at a maximum of 33 inches. That's pretty standard for a two bike bike carrier, and we do have plenty of space in between our bikes, so that's pretty good. But if you don't have any bikes on here, you could actually save some space. And the way we're going to do that is by pulling on that blue lever and pushing up this time. And I will say this is sitting really close to our vehicle, and I can actually get a measurement of that real quick. We are going to be sitting at closest from our bumper, just under 2 inches. But this is a pretty sturdy carrier. Even with me putting a lot of force behind this, it's barely moving. But for the total distance it sticks out now, that is just going to be right over 10 inches. So that's going to save you a lot of space. As for how it's going to interact with the back of the Outlander, it's not going to block a whole lot. So we are partially obstructing that license plate. I think it will still be visible for the most part. And the same is going to go with your backup camera. Now, you're probably going to catch a little bit of it, but I think that will still be usable. And as for your taillights and back window, that won't be obstructed at all. And the way this is going to install is we're going to have this 2-inch shank that goes into a 2-inch hitch receiver. We then have an anti-rattle bolt that goes through and connects to a lock core. That bolt is just going to be giving you a better hold of this so it's not rattling around in your hitch, so this lasts longer. And that lock core is just going to give you more security so no one can take your rack. In my opinion, I think this is going to be one of my top choices for a rack that's going to have a ramp that comes with it. Now there's a lot of other options out there, and I think they all do a great job, like the Yakima LX on-ramp like I was talking about earlier. That one's going to be a little bit more ideal for someone who really doesn't have any space in their vehicle, especially if you got that cargo space jam-packed with a lot of other stuff, and you really need to use a ramp. But I think if you can spare just a little bit more space, then I think this is the better option, just because it's going to be a much smoother transition from the rack to the ground because you don't have any masses that get in your way. So it's just going to be a lot easier to use in the long run. But again, this was just a look at the RockyMounts Gigawatt Bike Rack on the back of our 2023 Mitsubishi Outlander. I'm Matt. Thanks for watching.